It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. It's straight talk with Valerie. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, Detroit? This is the real black coffee, no sugar, no cream, straight talk. And we're coming straight at you tonight with another one of our Love and Logic segments. I have with me in the studio Pastor Mike. Say what's up, Pastor Mike.
Hey, everybody. I'm so grateful and thankful for my dear friend Valerie Kelly Bonner for being upon her show, Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream. Thank you.
And we have coming live from Louisiana, my god sister, Shalita Robinson Lucas. Say what's up to everybody. I don't hear. You all right? Yeah, I can't hear her. Okay. Okay, so what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, I'm glad you asked. Sis, why are you looking for love in the church? Black men leaving the church in droves. Are you surprised? Well, I'm not. Since Easter was yesterday, let's go back a little bit. Was it men still hanging at the cross with Jesus? Or was it women? My recollection tells me it was two women, his mama and Mary Magdalene. Brothers wasn't hanging around the cross, holding Jesus down at that particular time. And it seems they're not hanging around now, holding down the pastor at the church. Why is that? So we're going to talk a little bit about why is the black man leaving the church? And then we're going to talk about why are you even looking for love in the church? So let's go to Pastor Mike. Because you a pastor. You standing up in that pulpit, you holding it down. You bringing a message. You doing whatever God puts on your heart to do. Is your congregation primarily women?
For the most part, I think we do have a large portion of men. I believe it's like about 60-40 in our church, and that's very rare in this day and time, in this generation. But I do believe that a lot of brothers are leaving the church is because of the fact that the church has more so been portrayed for black men as a place for soft men, people that's not strong, and a lot of strong brothers, they feel that they shouldn't, that's not a place for them. I spent, in my yesteryears, I spent years in penitentiary, and all the time I was in penitentiary, I did love God, but I never went to church. I went to church about 4 times. And the only reason I didn't go is because the guys who were in penitentiary that was in the church, they were people that had snitched on people. They were brothers that was considered soft in the prison. So it kind of forced you to shield your way from that, because the church is a place that God forgive people. So oftentimes people go there to hide behind walls, if the truth be told.
Wow. Okay. Shalita, what is your take on this? Why do you think black men are leaving the church? I can't hear.
I could pick up till she get on.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep rolling. We're having a little bit of difficulty, but let's keep rolling, Mike.
Another problem within the church, especially the black church, and the enemy has oftentimes used the church against its purpose. The church is literally a place of deliverance, a place where people receive salvation, where people receive healing. They get
I can
set.
hear, but I can hear you.
They get set free.
But the audio is bad.
Okay, go ahead, Mike. Yep, keep
Where
going.
people get set free. Even in my church, there was a lady had blind eyes, legally blind in both eyes. God healed her. I've seen people healed. Many people with stage 4 cancer. I've seen people come off the street, come into the church, and the church has been more so their total salvation. It totally turned their life around. But in the same place where God is blessing, you're going to find people that's going to manipulate the system. You're going to find people that's going to do exactly what the devil wants them to do, and the devil is a deceiver, so he mislead people. So there's another group of people run to the church more so as a safe zone, as a place where they know that good things supposed to happen here, but in the same content, they're going to come there to act like they have been redeemed and act like they've been changed when they have not yet been set free. So they use this particular platform as a place to act as if God has really changed their life.
All right. Shalita, let's give it a try. What's your take on it?
So there, I think there's several layers to it, right? From a historical standpoint, men led the church all the way through civil rights. If you think about Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, MLK, even Malcolm X, there were, even in our local church in Romulus, men led the church, right? And so I think a couple things happened. Civil rights happened. People kind of laid back. We didn't feel a need to kumbaya as much. I think Pastor Mike is kind of on to some things related to the idea that men that attend church are soft or powder puffs. But I also think from a very cultural standpoint, people are picking up ideologies about our own blackness outside of the church. It doesn't resonate with, these ideas of we shall overcome. People are saying, oh, let's get over it. And those rhetorics are, I think, part of why men left the church. But if we had to be honest too, there was a shift, and women start really leading churches. And so you have all of these things that kind of congeal together. And then you have this group of women who have been told that go to church, you're going to find your man at church, go to church, you're going to find your husband at church. He that finds a wife needs to find her at the church, And so I remember as a young child, my uncles and adult male cousins and, they ran the church, and they're just not there anymore. It's like a generation of men that have died out, and their sons have not taken up the mantle. And what is left is a group of women who are now consistently single.
Well, I feel a couple of ways about this. Excuse me. One way is what you all have said and covered. Being in church can be considered as weak, not as therapeutic, and all of that you've said. But when I did a little mini poll, a lot of brothers was like, look, I'm not trying to be hustled, hoodwinked, none of that. Them pastors ain't nothing but a bunch of pimps and hustlers,
Yeah.
behind a pulpit. And I don't see nothing that's going on in the community or anywhere else that I need to be in there. You know, church is like a gang, and I'd rather just stay in my gang that I'm in the street. Why do I need to switch? I'm already in the gang. That is my family, and I'm cool where I'm at. And so a lot of people have that viewpoint too. I challenged them a little bit in saying, okay, well, if that's the case, put a collar on and go to the Mercedes Benz dealer and see if you walk out with a new Benz. Put a collar on. Now, I'm not saying that they're not hustling and that some people are not real with their ministry or whatever, because we know that that's not true. But we also know that there are some other things that are stereotypes and myths that are not true too. There are a lot of reasons why men and now women are leaving the church, right? Shalita touched on it when she said a lot of people are getting in touch with their own spirituality and having their own personal relationship with God and knowing some of the things that they know and choose to do is not directly connected to a brick and mortar building, right? And COVID has really proved that. And then when we move forward with technology, I can look at somebody sing a song and preach on my phone or on my TV or any mechanism that I have at my disposal. So if I remove the singing and I remove the entertainment, what is really left for me is that
Yeah.
message. And is that message compelling enough to not only draw, because you can draw people in when they're feeling compelled, led by the Spirit, whatever we want to label it as. But if they go and they hear a good message, then that makes them want to participate. I don't think the problem lies in drawing people in. It is keeping them there once you get them.
Yeah, but here's the issue. Everything that we spoken to results in one major crisis for Black women who were raised in the church. Again, this is love and logic. And so what we talk about is these ideas that impact us as women and men from partnering well. So you have a whole generation of women who have been taught that I'll give myself as an example. After divorce, the first idea, the first line of thought for me in finding another healthy mate that could possibly lead to marriage was at the church. And even if you look at the dynamics, or let's say the data of Black churches, as Pastor Mike says, his numbers are great, and it's still 60-40. So when you look at the average church, even the smaller churches, let's even take out the mega churches. But you look at your average size church, it's more like 80-20, female to male. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a woman who has been taught that her mate will find her, because when he finds a wife, he finds a good thing, and you have to be at the church to be found, right? Religion and not relationship, because that's different, right? But I have to be found at the church. I'm gonna tell you what comes to mind for me. Off Color Purple, when Oprah Winfrey say, I sat there till I damn near rot to death. That's what's happening for women in the church, because there's not a fair male representation there. I can give a prime example. I legitimately had a situation at the church. One of the few single forward-thinking males approached me at a particular church that I wasn't even a member at the time, but I was in attendance. Let's call it that. And we exchanged phone numbers. Very intelligent, articulate guy. So you get excited, right? So I called another church member friend and asked for a reference, if you will. At which time I learned that they had been dating for about 10 years.
Wow. Pastor
Cue,
Mike.
cue the silence.
Wow. Pastor Mike, chime in, tap in.
Well, first and foremost, I think for every real $20 bill, there's a counterfeit. And I look at the church the same way. I believe with all my heart that, for the most part, it's a large percentage of people here in America. We have lost focus for the whole entire purpose of the church. The church is a place where we're supposed to go to. I think you made a little mention of it, Val, when you said more so as a hospital. It's a place where we're supposed to take our own baggage from a sinful nature and become born again. I'm supposed to become a new creation in Christ Jesus. But technically speaking, I remember it was a time a young lady I dated, and this was 5 years before I was married, by me knowing something about the church at an early age. Well, we split up. So what I did is I used the church more so to manipulate her to act as if I had changed from one person to another person. And this is a serious problem we have today, because everybody know that they can go into the church and there are people that's on the outside of the church, they can look at them and they appear to be a whole different person. Why? Because I'm going to Sunday school once a week. I'm going to Bible class. But technically, that's not the case. And there's a whole lot of people that's in the church that has not yet been redeemed. There's a whole lot of people that use the church as a place more so to manipulate, deceive, trick, mislead other people. I want to say this before you take it. The church in this day and time, we are beginning to see an anti-Christ perspective of the church. When I say anti, the word anti mean I'm against Christ or I'm replacing Christ with another. If you notice, we have replaced worship in the church, most churches, with entertainment. We have replaced faith with reasoning. We have replaced pastors with good administrators. They're not pastors. They're just people that can run a large CEO companies all across this nation. That don't mean they great pastors. That don't mean they involved in people's lives. They don't know all these people that's in their churches. And we have replaced rebuking demons. At one time we did more so to counsel demons. Just be cool while you in service. When you go home, you can act a fool. So the church is not the church that we used to see years ago, because the enemy, if there's one place he wants to own, it's the church, because he owned the crack house, he owned the heroin house, he owned the liquor stores. But I don't own the church, so this is a good place for me to hang out at.
Hand clap. Give him some applause, Marquise.
Well, Pastor Mike, how does that then impact women who are still waiting under an antiquated ideology relating to partnership?
Because I'd rather, if I was a woman, I'd rather go to a nice business meeting. I'd rather go to somewhere where they're teaching and training people to be great entrepreneurs, to find a good guy, to be in a church, in a place where you're supposed to be redeemed, and look for a guy. And that's where a lot of women become deceived, because they're doing that out of total innocence, trying to find the Bible say, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtain favor unto the Lord. So they are looking and they're doing what the scriptures is telling them to do, but at the same token, they're running into wolves in sheep's clothing.
Well, I'm going to say this too. As we were talking pre-show, to me, the church is like a hospital for the spiritually sick. And you go there, you get some sense of wellness, some sense of being, some prescriptive type plan, even if that's in those 66 books on how to heal and how to be a better person and all of these other things. So if you look at it as a place for the spiritually sick to get well, why would you go there to even look for a husband? Would you go to the hospital to find one?
What you just described was AA. and Bill W, where they tell you not to date for a year.
But, my dear sister, what if this brother did get redeemed? What if he was on drugs? He did get cleaned up. What if he was a bad person and God did change his entire life? Then, do that qualify him to be a great guy? Or does that just put him in a place that he's still in a hospital trying to get better and better?
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm not diminishing the brother that is trying to get healed or who is even ill. I will not take anything away from someone who is ill and they became well, right? And they used the will of God or what God had for their life as a conduit. But why you got to find that in them four walls of the church?
And here's another reality.
Why you got to be there? You can find him at an AA meeting. You can find him at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. You can find him at the grocery store. I say we're looking for love in all the wrong places, and maybe we shouldn't be looking. Maybe it should find us.
But here's the hard part. And here's another thing that we haven't really expounded upon. When you are raised that is the process and that is the system, two things, the process and the system. And then you're sitting there and the process never happens because the system is broken. How many years does it take one person, let's just take one person to realize that I am sitting here rotting away. I'm sitting here rotting away. And time and time again, I'll be honest with you, I've seen that one guy that we're just referring to who has gone and gotten himself clean or whatever brokenness or whatever those experiences that he's had that caused some crisis in his life. By the time he makes it to the church, he is like the golden goose. And there are, let's call it 200 women for that one man. Do you know how ugly that looks?
Oh yeah, they gonna be on it. Tap in, Mike. I see you over there. I see them thoughts dancing.
What's something that we can truly realize is that I'm sure both of you all probably saw The Godfather, and by watching the Godfather movie, there was a fellow that was in Godfather 2 that the emphasis was on, and in Godfather 3 was called Michael Corleone, the younger son of the Don Corleone. Well, then Michael was pretty intelligent, but if you notice in the Godfather 2, Michael was in church, and he was in church, but outside the church, he was getting people killed. So the church is a place that you all can act hypocritical in, and people will believe that you are indeed a good person. Everybody in the church supposed to be a good person. That's what the picture has been painted, because Christ is the one that can redeem our lives. But at the same token, we're going to always have people that's manipulating any system that works.
Well, we picked on the brothers for a while. Excuse me. But brothers, all women in the church are not good women either. So let's turn those tables a little bit, because I will tell you if we go back to the very first instance of manipulation, we can talk about the snake or the serpent and the forbidden fruit, because they never said it was an apple, just forbidden fruit, and how Eve got Adam to bite that forbidden fruit, to partake in that forbidden fruit. And it's still happening right now. All women in the church aren't good women. See, because we all have some stuff, right? And that stuff makes for a great testimony, right? Because when you have your test and you overcome them, you create this testimony that you can share with other people about how you've overcome and what you have done and where you are now and the goodness of God therein. However, some of us still got some baggage that we have not unpacked. We have come to the church And we were supposed to leave it at the altar, but we don't. We might go to the altar and bring some residual bits of that back with us. And then we
But
get
what is-
into this new relationship and we still got that baggage. When you go on a vacation, now some people might, I know my toiletries, toothpaste, and all of that stuff, I have a certain bag for that, and I don't unpack that. But when I go on vacation and I come home, I unpack that bag and repack it before I go on a new journey. I think everybody should take that same analogy in a relationship. You got to make sure that bag empty and ready to travel
that's all.
on.
That's all good, sis. But I'm gonna unpack a bag and it's gonna stay empty because they not in the church. Men's ain't there. Nah,
They
I'm
at
just-
Mike Church, get that address out. You might fill up on.
Mike is 60. Even Mike said 60-40.
Yeah.
And of the 40% of the 60, or the 40% that he's referring to, I promise you, Mr. Mike, Pastor Mike, how many of those 40% are already married and came with their wives?
No, that's real. I'm not going to argue or dispute that. Can I make a point?
You can.
Okay, the point I want to make is that we as black people, African American people from the Mandingo tribe or wherever we come from, the tribe of Judah, black Jews, I want to make a very powerful point. We have more so a curse that's almost against our culture of people, and the curse comes from the Jim Crow laws and the Willie Lynch
Correct.
letter. And one of the curses, I know you want to come here, honey. One of the curses that we have is that we as black people, we will kill each other to try to make ourselves look good in front of master. My point is, if I see another black brown-skinned person doing something wrong, I want to go and tell master what they was doing, so master will get them in trouble and master will throw me a bone out. But at the same token, we have taken that mentality into the church, and God is not like that. God is very merciful. He's very loving. He's going to give us time and time to get ourselves together. But the moment I catch you doing something wrong, I want to find fault in you versus try to help you. And we don't help our own people that much. And we seen throughout the last administration that was in the political offices here in this country, we seen all kind of mess, all kind of foolishness, but they still pick their people up and hold them by the arms and help them be able to walk again. But we don't even do that in the house of God, and that's a terrible, sad shame. And last but not least, if I had a 1-year-old baby and I was teaching them how to walk, they keep falling down, I would keep picking them up and encourage them, come on, come on, come on. But what we do is we'll see a baby that fall down, we put our foot on them and never want to pick them up and help them walk. I'm finished.
Yeah. That's good stuff, Pastor Mike. And historically, you are absolutely correct. Even prior to the Willie Lynch letter, there was a systemic value in the disparaging and separation of black men and women. And we have suffered. Each prominent individual who has ever spoken about this disparity, W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson, and the miseducation of the Negro. This has all been very consistent throughout the ages with why we can't consistently be to go back to operating plurally, because there's a difference. When you operate plurally, that is part of what we call the African retention, because in Africa we did operate plural, meaning one can't do anything without the. And so that severing during the diaspora, the spreading out of us as individuals, it really has impacted us in every area. But knowing is half the battle. And most of us know this now. Most of us know it. We don't operate in it. We don't operate in empathy. We don't operate in love. We don't love thy neighbor as thyself. And we have a almost disdain for one another without saying it. And I think that has impacted relationships between black and between black women and black men. I think it has particularly impacted the church, particularly since the advent of civil rights. There's nothing more to fight for, quote unquote, air quotes. Y'all see my quotes? And so I think you're onto something. But where do we go from there? Where do we go? Okay, we could talk about Willie Lynch. We could talk about these disparities. We could talk about the plantation theory. Where do we go now to create the unity that we need between male and female, so that our communities are a reflection of that?
Well, you said something that resonated with me. And we're going to take a quick musical break, though. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about loving thy neighbor as you love yourself. You've been listening to Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, Straight Talk with Valerie, and we will be right back.
Listen now, your tears can make your season change. Your tears can tell the story of love and pain. Your tears can be like rain that falls from the sky. Watch the flowers bloom in your life. So don't be scared to cry. Don't be ashamed to let the tears run. Let the tears fall from your eyes. So don't be scared to cry. Don't be ashamed to let the tears fall from your eyes. When the seasons change, don't be scared of what the change may bring. It may bring sunshine, then again, it may bring you rain. And if the changes seem like a storm, that'll never end. Hold on, my brother, don't give up. Go on through to the other end, and right there and then is where your new life is.
All right, we were listening to a track called Don't Cry from my wonderful cousin, Millard Thomas Jr. of Run of the Mill Music Group. Now, before break, I said we were going to tap in on the love thy neighbor as you love yourself. That's part of the problem. It's a lot of people that don't love themselves, so they don't know how to love nobody else. And I'm talking about general relationships, church member to church member, friend to friend. So if you don't know that, and then you go into a relationship and you don't love yourself, you definitely don't know how to love anybody else. And that's one of the problems. See, we need to start really dissecting some of these verses down and get to the true meaning. We can quote them, but we're not living them. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. That means you need to love yourself. And I'll use myself as an example. I've picked up some COVID weight, right? And I'm sure a lot of more people have, but it's impacting my health, my blood pressure. I love myself. I love myself too much to put another piece of salty bacon in my mouth, or whatever it is, right? I have to love myself, and anything that I take in, it needs to be for my good, whether that's food, spiritual knowledge, or taking another person into my life. You know, they need to compliment me. They need to understand my thorns. We all have thorns. You know, I could be this beautiful rose that's just flowering to other people who are looking at me. But where do things grow from? Dirt. I have some stuff. I'm like a seed. I'm going to grow wherever I'm planted, but I'm rooted in some dirt. And people need to understand that. But I've learned to heal and to get past some of my misfortunes and other things that I have gone through. But I am still that person. It just takes a lot of work for me to do some things differently than what I have been rooted in and know how to do. So the love your neighbor as you love yourself, make sure you love yourself before you call yourself going to love somebody else, because that's part of the problem, a big part of the problem.
That's good. That's real good. Can I chime in?
Yeah, go ahead, tap in.
I have noticed that been a serious epidemic that goes around with my dear black sisters, and one of the problems that I've seen them have is I'm a pastor and I've married well over at least 50 couples throughout my time of pastoring. And there is something that I always ask the couple, do you take this man? Do you take this woman? Not the man that you think you can make him to be. And that is a problem with my dear sisters, because oftentimes a lot of sisters believe the fact that they can take a brother and make him into what they want him to be. But you're marrying the man that's right before you, the same guy you met, the same brother that you was dealing with that had this particular skeleton that you knew that was in the closet, this problem and that problem. You're taking that man, and do you take that man, not the one you think you going to make him to be your lawful wedded husband? And that's all I want to add.
Hey,
Well, ooh, I can't pick me, sis. Ooh, tapping in.
go ahead, tap in.
So so I saw a post recently that said for women, it's okay to partner with a broken man and build him. And I said, well, how does that impact his leadership? First, like, if he is to provide, protect, and cover, but he broken and you building, then what is he leading? Lopsided? Like, I don't get. Now, that's not to say people don't have issues. We all do. But the statement was so bold and just wrong. I am not Captain Build-A-Bear. Let me just be very clear. I am not Captain Build-A-Bear. But to add on to what you and Pastor Mike were talking about as it relates to love thy neighbor as thyself, here's the deal. I think in relationships, and strictly as it relates to relationships, people have a tendency, when they think about loving their neighbor as themselves, they love them from what they need, not from what the other person needs. Right?
That's good.
And so there's a language barrier, if you will. My love language might be food. Your love language might be vacation. And I think we have a tendency to decide what loving your neighbor as yourself is based on what we want or what we need to feel loved, and or those things that we know make us feel loved. We hardly ever take the time to figure out what that looks like for our partners. So I think in a small way, we misunderstand that scripture, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, that means I want my partner to ask me what loving me looks like. And then I want to ask my partner, what does loving you look like? Because it's different.
Well, yeah, because see, I have an analogy. We get in the bed before we get in someone's head. Then you found out you slept with a dummy, but you have all of these emotions and stuff tied to it. So now you're trying to become a ventriloquist and, molding and shaping and becoming a potter to shape this person. You cannot. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to work on things, but I am saying that Mike said it best. You knew what you were getting when you got it. And if you didn't know, you really need to get out, because that means that, you've been bamboozled and you've married a fraud or whatever. Because when you get married, you should know enough about that person, right, to know whether you can build with them and grow. And that's what you're really agreeing to when you take those vows. Not that we perfect and we gonna move forward from here and have this perfect relationship, that when the going gets tough, the tough is not going to get going unless you really have to, right? There comes a time where you got to try to build. And loving your neighbor as loving yourself means, to me, giving me that same grace and mercy and forgiveness as you would want somebody to give you. Love on me the way you expect me to love on you. And what does that look like? Go ahead, Mike.
I think true love is for a person to see someone and see what I can add to their life, and another person should see what they can add to your life. I truly believe that there is a woman that can birth out the $1 million man that's in a man, but I also think there's a man that can birth out the $1 million woman that's in the woman. And I believe that's how relationships really should be. I also believe that men are real hunters, just like a lion is out in the jungle hunting the doe. And I think a lion will do anything in his nature, anything in his character to catch that particular doe. He don't even have to eat it during that time, but he got to fight tooth and nail to catch that particular animal because he's a hunter. And that's what men do oftentimes. A man will wine, dine, do everything they can because oftentimes they have a purpose in mind. They want to more so be with this woman, get intimately involved with this woman, and that's why women have these problems, because once they give themselves to a hunter, then the hunter, that's all I was looking for. And now he walk off and he just leave her as a lonely young lady.
A carcass.
A carcass is. But
A
yeah,
carcass.
you're right. But now we can't discount women, because women can take a man, chew him
And
up,
what?
and spit him out, spit
That's
the
true.
bones out.
That's real true.
But that is deep and very factual and solid what you said, Mike. Bring out the best in each other, not the worst.
Exactly.
But where we gonna find that at the church, y'all?
Well,
Let's get back to this, Pastor Mike.
the
'Cause
church,
I've been waiting on this topic for a while.
the,
Because I about sat there till I damn near rocked to death. Okay?
the church supposed to be a building center, a building, epic center that build people's lives.
Yeah.
And that should be the place. For one, if my life is Christ-centered, then if I honor God like I say I honor God, I definitely will honor my wife and love my wife as Christ loved the church. That's where a lot of people get deceived at, because you have deceivers. You have wolves in sheep's clothing. They know the scriptures, but they don't know the God that's behind the book. That's real talk.
Pastor Mike, I'll be honest with you. I have met more decent men dating that didn't attend church than the men in the church. Honestly, I have met some creeps at the church. I mean, when they meander in every now and again. Creeps.
I think, honestly, that goes in all facts of life. Like, I met some of the greatest brothers I ever met that I know will be great men in women's lives behind bars. And I also met some people that's in the church that's all they're doing because they know that men are hard to find in the church from certain women, because there's no real solid men in the church, and they take advantage of that. So when I was single, I didn't date nobody, and God know this. When I was 100% single, came home from penitentiary, I didn't date nobody when I found Jesus unless I felt that they was marriageable material. I did not play with people because I know that women really want to get married, and I didn't want to lead no one like a Pied Piper down a place where I was going to leave them stuck, and that's real talk.
Wow.
Have them fighting at the church, Pastor. Pastor, I have seen some ugly things go down between men and women at the church. I have seen Sister Fanny Pearl take her wig off and get it in behind Mr. Earl.
Ah, you know what? I think we ought to. Y'all want to pick up a part 2 on this on Thursday on the StreamYard and take it live because we digging a little
Absolutely.
deep and it's time for us to go. However, I think we got some more conversation left on this subject. So y'all want to pick it up a little later?
I do. There's some more meat on this carcass.
I'm
Okay.
following your lead.
So we will do that. So on Thursday night, we are going to come live, 7 p.m. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream, with part 2 of Sister, Why You Looking for Love in the Church, which has morphed into just in general, why you looking for love in the church? Ain't nobody there for you.
This time
Oh,
you've
is
been
it?
on time.
And as my
There's
sister
somebody
say,
in there for 'em.
she's been waiting and waiting, turning into a carcass. So, we will find out. We will find out. Thank you, Pastor Mike, for popping in, giving us that wisdom like you always do. And then my host, Shalita Robinson Lucas, my sister, and I am Black Coffee. And you have been listening to Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, where I don't try to spill the tea or make you feel dazed like you had a shot of cheap liquor. I just want to articulate powerful statements that make you see things from another perspective, mine. And we will hear from you and see you on Thursday night. Because with StreamYard, you can type them comments in. So we want to see what you
Yeah.
got to say as our audience, and we're going to get it in and pick this up at that time. You guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you later. We're out.